PDA actually has more to do with how the demand is avoided than the frequency of demand avoidance. Frequency takes secondary importance when it comes to encapsulating what the PDA essence is. Interestingly, person A might be extremely demand avoidant, but not for PDA reasons. At the same time, person B might be relatively demand avoidant, notably not as much as person A, but for 100% PDA reasons. There are various types of demand avoidance, most of which, bar PDA, have a very rational basis to them and can be explained fairly easily. But many can end up superficially mirroring demand avoidance of the PDA kind. For this reason, it is always important to explore the drivers behind demand avoidant behaviours. Here are some of many. Let's start off with one with which we are all familiar. Social anxiety. Right off the bat, there is a clear reason here for why a person might avoid not only certain, but several situations. Anything that requires interacting with other human beings is anxiety-inducing to the point these situations are to be avoided at all costs. Stage fright. Fear of performing or exposure to large groups of people, rendering the individual unable to perform. Sensory avoidance, not being able to tolerate certain environments due to sensory incongruence and the overwhelm this brings. Autistic inertia, difficulty with shifting gears or transitioning from point A to point B. Here, the emphasis is on point A, departing from which can be impossible, whereas in PDA, leaving point A isn't the issue, it's point B on which the emphasis is placed because it is point B at which the demand resides. Executive tiredness, pathologically known as executive dysfunction. Our executive functions allow us to plan, decision-make, strategize, hold focus, and start, persevere with, and complete tasks. Does ADHD spring to mind? Bingo. Demand avoidance is no stranger to the ADHDer, and it's due to differences in executive functioning, not demand avoidance of the PDA kind. Any task or activity which requires sustained mental effort is likely to be avoided. Perfectionism. Sometimes it's impossible to do things because you just know that no matter how hard you try, you will not meet your own standard of perfection. To do anything in a lackluster or half-hearted fashion to an average standard is just unacceptable to perfectionists. ODD, refusal to comply on the basis that authority is to be resisted and argued against. This is not the same as avoiding demands, which don't have to come from a person. It is the preoccupation with resisting status and hierarchy, both of which are not recognised by the PDA individual. Similarly, ODD is more of an I won't, whereas PDA is more I can't or can't help won't. Demand avoidance of the PDA kind. Seemingly irrational and therefore harder to explain by definition. There doesn't seem to exist any clear reason for why something must be avoided other than a thing's inherently demanding nature. Hence why enjoyable activities are also avoided. The demand represents the venom which drips from the fangs of a viper. Control or freedom cannot be compromised. They are sacred, invaluable, and vital states of being. I can kind of sum this up with I'm free, so fuck you. But it's a lot more complicated than that. The individual, instead of ignoring or fleeing from a request, is more likely to explode into a kind of sassy, theatrical performance, no one gets to tell me what to do and gets away with it, kind of a mode, calling upon an arsenal of witty, clever, reality-defying, mundanity-destroying excuses that stymie everyone within earshot. Those of you who have been following me for a while may be familiar with my metaphorical model of the PDA current, within which everything is possible, because it is here that full autonomy is attained. Autonomy being a most integral aspect of our being and identity, outside of which nothing is possible. There is no autonomy outside the PDA flow, and therefore every demand represents that which is designed to drag one away from their PDA current. It's complicated, isn't it? Even more so when there are multiple forms of demand avoidance co-occurring. It might be a good idea, if you recognise that you are demand avoidant, to ask yourself which kind you are experiencing. There are so many. On a final note, demand avoidance does not necessarily have to be the be-all and end-all when it comes to ascertaining PDA. PDA is not a single standalone criterion. It describes an entire profile or constellation, or a type of person. It is important to consider the other features too, such as special interests which are social in nature, and immense, sometimes chaotic creativity, such as love of roleplay and withdrawal into fantasy.